Thank you for being here. Good evening to you all. You're all welcome to today's lesson. So right now, I'll be a teacher for the night, or rather facilitator. We begin today's lesson in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I'm sure most of you can hear me as it stands now. So today will be the closing lesson on week 5 lesson. Week 5, the lesson was we talk about the cell membrane structure or the structure of the cell membrane and transport. So we're looking at how the structure of the cell membrane adaptive to perform its function, and also how substances are being transported across the cell membrane. So we first talk about the two main types of transport system, that is the passive transport and the active transport. So passive transport, you remember, it involves diffusion and osmosis. That is because no energy is required by the cell to produce this substance. The reason being that they are moving along the concentration gradient. So it's like a river flowing downstream. It doesn't need any energy to point things. But when you are going upstream, there's a need for energy or a power point to push you across or against the concentration. So any question, any suggestion, maybe read something new under active transport. Sorry, under passive transport, osmosis and diffusion. And we talk about the condition that results from osmosis. That is whether it's a plant cell, animal cell, whether it's in a hypotonic solution, water will go into the cell. So animal cell will end up increasing in size, and apparently later they will burst, they will herbalize. Plant cell will pick up more water because of their cell wall emptied it, they will not burst. So they become tepid as the temperature will go down and they will become so tepid and stiff. Whereas in hypertonic solution, animal cell will lose water continually, they will become predated or say leaky, whereas plant cell will become flaccid, but under extreme heat, they can undergo what we call plasmolysis. That is the degree of the shrinkage of the nucleus and cytoplasmic content, that the cell membrane, into the inner part of the cell, which is irreversible. That the cell dies or will come out. That is plasmolysis, and the extreme loss of water in a hypotonic solution. So this is a summary of all that we have learned from our first lesson last week, until today, which I'm hoping we can finish active transport and vesicular or blood transport. Point in time, there's a question you can please ask. There is an to add up to what I've taught you right now. And also raise up the hand. I will not wait for 2 minutes, so within a few seconds, if I don't see any sign someone who wants to talk for me. Alright, so at this point in time, I think there's no question well understood. Now, here is our learning material. Those who join very late have been posting this on consistent basis. So if you don't have it, go to the Google Classroom app to download the documents so that it's a PowerPoint and a Word document. We are done with the PowerPoint. Now we are using the PDF document. So you can also chat me about but it's on the Google Classroom app. So those who be watching from YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and if you are getting that, so let's do that support so that you can be notified anytime I post lesson to assist you. Thank you very much. So this is what we'll be learning today, active transport. So that this was our concluding sentence that we read last Tuesday. It says that all cells, let me read it again for you. All cells use the process of diffusion to absorb and release or substances, but diffusion alone is not enough for all substances because some substances cannot go with the flow of diffusion. That is, if they are normal concentration, some will try to go against concentration, and they will need some serious systems or enhanced or advanced systems for them to be transported. So diffusion alone is not enough, or let me say, of course, diffusion alone are not enough for the cell to continue with their transaction or their transport systems. Thereby, there's a need for another or a supplementary transport system, which today we look at active transport, and the third one, which is bulk transport. That is when it's like a cargo car, when we are transporting a lot of things, a high volume of mass of substances that cannot pass the cell membrane like that. So we need a carrier or a carriage to carry them. That is the vesicular transport. But some also are small, but they are going against the flow. So they will need energy to push them across or against their concentration. And that is how you require energy. And the energy current, as I've been telling you, of the cell is the cell membrane. So we need energy in the form of ATP to push such substances across the cell, and that's active transport. So active transport is defined as the movement of molecules from a region of low concentration. So this is just like the reverse of diffusion. Remember, diffusion is from a higher concentration to a lower concentration until the molecules are evenly spread. So we are from a higher concentration moving down to lower. Then we form an equilibrium, that is a net transfer, so that if two move there, two comes here. So at any point in time, the molecules are evenly dispersed across the region. But under active transport, we are moving the molecule from a lower concentration region to a region of a higher concentration. And we are moving it across a living cell. So it's moving from one part of the cell to another cell. From the cell where it is being less to a cell where we have a lot of them there. So it's like this. We have maybe 5 students outside, and all of the students in the queue on the classroom. If you want to push the other students to the classroom, you need a little bit of energy. That is not the sense of what I'm trying to explain to you. Because they are few, they can easily find somewhere. But if all of you are moving, I can never say get out. You can easily split. But if I want only 2 students to get to where the mass are, they can easily take or come as a family. So over there they are less, and I want to direct them to where they are more. But if you are more, even if I don't tell you to scatter, most of them decide to go to wherever you want. But that get that 5 students, they might decide to stay wherever they are. So in active transport, they are lower, and we are pushing them to where the masses are. That is active transport. So it's defined as the movement of molecules. Let me highlight that. It's defined as the movement of molecules from a region of a lower concentration to a region of high concentration across a living cell using energy from the cell. And the energy will be in the form of heat, which is adenosine triphosphate. At this point, if you understand, you can give me some thumbs up. So it's just like diffusion, whereby we define it as the movement of substances from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration using energy from the cell. We are moving the substances across the cell using energy from the cell. So that defines what we call active transport. I'm sure we all understand, so I will move on for the purpose. If you understand everyone for success, yes, you do understand. So I'm sure most of us will understand. But please just be careful. If your network is having some features, make sure you stabilize it. This is where it will get a little bit slow. There are some technical terms here. Most of you haven't heard before, but if you stay with us, I bet you understand. So ATP is the form of energy used by the cell, and it takes place in the kidney cells, not only in the kidney cells, it takes also in the intestines, it also takes place in plant cells and the liver cells. So it's not only in the intestines, please. So I think that, but largely it occurs in the kidney cells. That is when we do what we call selective reabsorption. There are some substances that still find their way to filter out into the kidney. So the kidney will filter them out and now take them back to the body. So proteins are taking our glucose and all these things. So normally we shouldn't be having glucose in our body. Trace of protein will be there, but a bunch of them are taken back into our body system. But the body still needs glucose for cellular activity. Some proteins are also essential at the body, so they are filtered out. But yet there are some traces of these protein, and there shouldn't be glucose over there. As we are getting it, that means we are having a compromise or that you are becoming more diabetic. So that is what the function of selective reabsorption, or let me say active transport in the cells. And because we are using energy in the form of ATP, remember we get ATP from respiration, and before respiration will occur, we need oxygen. So it means that there should be a need for the organism or the cell to have what we call oxygen. So since we are using energy, we will need mitochondria, that is the powerhouse, or let me say the manufacturing factor of the cell. And because oxygen will be needed for respiration to get enough heat, that is aerobic respiration to get that heat. So not most often than not, we will go through aerobic respiration to get that amount of energy. So in active transport, special proteins in the cell act like carriers. And this, remember we talked about the cell membrane, whereby we realize that we have carrier or channel proteins. So these membrane proteins are help us to transport across the cell membrane, but we use energy in the form of heat. So most of these cells will have a lot of mitochondria. Please, where is ATP absorbed? ATP is the energy currency. And remember, it undergoes in the mitochondria. So we get them from the mitochondria. It's like going to prepare your food in the kitchen. After preparing the food in the kitchen, what happens? You take it to the dining hall, or you take it wherever the people want to buy and take the food to. So you take it to where it is needed. So the ATP is brought from the cellular respiration, that particularly aerobic respiration. So in the mitochondria,
So what's explaining here, the ATP is produced in the mitochondria. Mitochondria has different sections. So we have the inner foldings that we call the crystal or the inner membrane. Then we also have the matrix, that is like the cytoplasm of the organelle mitochondria, and we call that place the matrix. That is where the Krebs cycle and glycolysis occur. So respiration occur in that area, which helps in the production of the ATP for it to be dispersed to other part of the body cell.
finished with the ATP, is now being released into all parts or all cells. Let's say all parts of the cell that will need energy. So most cells, if not all, most cells have mitochondria. And once the mitochondria, and some have more than others, because some will need more energy, like the sperm cell, they will need more energy. We have a lot of them. There are some other nerve cells also need a lot. So they have a lot of mitochondria. Some cells don't have that, or they don't activate cellular activity. So that's why the ATP is in the mitochondria is now released into the cell. Then the cell can perform its activity. Thanks for the question. So later I will give you a chance to ask more questions. Now, in active transport, special proteins, that is the carrier proteins or channel proteins, they are needed to move the molecule from one side to the other side of the cell. So this is what happens. They'll use the chemical energy, and that is the energy currency, adenosine triphosphate, ATP. And ATP and the active transport involves the movement of ions such as sodium, chlorine, and potassium. So we have the potassium sodium point. That is where these ions create ionic potential for them to process. It also allows substances to enter in and out of the cell via active transport. At this point, I will call, if you have a question, you can raise up and ask. I will explain. Question on only what I thought, but you have a lot to say. So only active transport, what I've shown to you. Add this, is it Addison or addition? Let me check. Your hand is up, talk to us. Once you raise up your hand, be ready to ask your question. Make sure your hand is on your screen to unmute. Addison, let me check. You have 30 seconds to talk. Esther Kumache, if you are ready, talk to us. Let me lower your hand. Esther Kumache. Esther, if you are talking, I can't hear you. Are you really talking? Mache, I don't think she's ready. You can type it in the comment section. Linear, affiliate princess, if you can hear me, talk to us.
Sir, please, per what you are saying about the active transport, can you say that it's related to osmosis?
No, please. Be on the line. Let me Why are you thinking it's related to osmosis? Okay. Now I get your reason. Tell me what you are thinking.
Thank you.
No.
Sir,
Why do you think we'll be likened to osmosis?
because osmosis is from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. So
Thank you
I'm
very
getting
much. Yes, don't get confused. I told you that osmosis is the movement of what?
molecules.
No, water molecules.
Water molecules.
So if water is doing the movement, what are we talking about?
Osmosis.
Very good. So just be on the line. Let's interact for you to understand. So I understood where you were coming from later. Osmosis from where water is low. So where water is small, are you getting it? Or other
Yes, sir.
concentration. So where water is small, where water is what? Low. So it can't be likened. The reason is water is from where it is small to where it is low. But here, if you are moving glucose, it is from where it is low to where it is small. You see, it's even the reverse of the osmosis. Are you getting it? So normally we say it is more related to diffusion in the sense that it is using molecules which are not water. But here is a counter-attack against a concentration gradient. So normally we say it's a reverse of diffusion. But diffusion is other molecules moving, and anti-transfer is other molecules moving, not water. But instead of going across or along the gradient, it goes against. So it's like a reverse of diffusion. If you want to liken it to osmosis, then the only way you can liken it is that here water is moving from where it is small or where the concentration is low to where the concentration is high. But if you are looking at the similarity or the likeness, then if water is going, then is water more, water is more. If glucose is more, if glucose more, no, it is less. So you can liken it, but in the right way, the liking will not be applicable because if water is moving, let's talk about is water more or less. Water is more intense. What about active transport? Glucose is moving. Is glucose more than no? Glucose is less. So you see the little contradiction right there. So it's better you say it's just like the reverse so that you don't confuse yourself.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very brilliant question that you asked. Thank you very much for that question. I feel your princess, your hand is up again. Ask your question. Let's do it.
Sorry.
Okay, I feel. Or you didn't intend to raise up your hand.
Sir, please, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there's any other question, you can bring it up only about diffusion so far. Sorry, active transport so far. We are talking about diffusion. Mr. Kumache, you are welcome back. Ask your question if you are ready. Esther, if you are speaking, we can't hear you. I'm giving you the last 5 seconds. Then I'll continue. The network is breaking, so if you can stand well or get good connection. I could hear you, but the voice is very low. I heard I should tell you more about that. Oh, but this thing we've talked about this several times. Esther, what were you? Charlie, go and look at the other people. We know that this is the energy currency. I didn't even go to explain to you. So we have this when the adenine, guanine, tyrosine. If I bring this in here, you will not think because even this. So these are bases. We call them bases. But when we talk about genetic, we talk about adenine and guanine. So these are sugar models. So adenosine. So the adenine group plus the sugar getting here as the adenosine. Then triphosphate, tri means 3. So we have phosphate group attached to this. When we say DNA bases, we have ribose sugar and the rest. So here, this is a sugar being added to a triphosphate, a phosphate group. So this molecule is being attached to 3 molecules of phosphorus or a phosphate group. You know the cation, people, negative whatsoever. So that is a combination. That is how the body sees energy. When we are buying fuel for your diesel car, you go and buy diesel. If it's a petrol car, you buy petrol. That is the energy carriage of your car. If you put in water, it cannot work because it's not a hydro powered engine. So you have to buy, if you buy diesel for a petrol car to break down the energy. So the energy carriage of the cell is adjacent and phosphate. And I've told you that we have three molecules of it. That's why it's dry. You can use one. It's like a three bowl that I talked to you about. You use one in the morning once you go in the breakfast or first when you eat it. Then the last one is at lunch. So once you are done with it, you have consumed the phosphate part. Now the androgen group is like the bowl. You take it back to your house. Your mom, you wash it. Your mom gives you another food, certain layers. You take this food and you enjoy again. So that is it. So please, you can read more about this, and that is what we need to know about that. At this our level, we don't look at the chemical business. So that is the basic idea. Know that is the energy currency of the cell, and I think we are good. So as we are saying energy, 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 what is energy to the cell? Energy to the cell is adiposine transpose. We have other types of energy. That is an FAD, flame. I think adenophosphate. So
That's
flavine,
flavin adenine dinucleotide. Then we have flavin adenine dinucleotide reduced FADH2. Then we have what we call NADH. Three is an electron carrier transfer. So basically we have three. That is FADH2, NADH, and ATP. With ATP being the common or the most popular one.
so later, when we talk about other aspects of biology, we will talk about these energy currencies. When we talk about the Krebs cycle, this is the, let me say, the basic currents energy currents. So now let's look at factors that affect active transport. So we have some on the screen, oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. Because we are saying we will need energy for this type of transport. If we need energy, then we need something to burn the energy. That is oxygen. So active transport is directly affected by oxygen. So can someone on the mic explain to us how oxygen affects the rate of active transport? And if you understand that, I want to make it interactive but sometimes because of time, I want to. So if someone can help us explain, that would be the kind of. So I have shown to you the points. So just tell me, you can all understand how you think oxygen can affect the rate of active transport. I'm not seeing any hand raised up yet. If there is any, you can raise up your hand. Maybe next time I'll be calling names from the list of people. Wait for someone. I'll not wait for quite a long time. Alright, since there's no hand up, let me go straight to the point. So oxygen is provided during respiration. So when this energy is good, okay, who is that? You can talk to us. Lena Free, yeah, carry on, help us.
Sir, please, because for active transport, because it generates ATP, the energy currency of this, it helps in the energy currency of the cell. So during the respiration, oxygen is the final acceptor, allowing the cell to produce a significant ATP.
Okay, thank you very much for telling that. So the oxygen is needed in the Krebs cycle or the making of energy in the cell. So we talk about an acceptor and the rest. So in the layman's idea, we need oxygen. And this oxygen will help us in the transfer or electron carrier charges and patterns or pathways just to help us to get our ATP for our cellular activity or active transport. So that is why oxygen is needed. So oxygen is needed as the carrier or a car to help us transport these of electrons for us to get our needs. So Thank you very much. So the greater the amount of oxygen in the cell, the greater the rate of diffusion. That is why if you have a lot of oxygen, your cells can undergo respiration to release energy for cellular activities. I was also watching your hand was talk to us.
Sir, please, I wanted to add that the oxygen supplies the energy needed for the active transport to happen.
Yes, and how that happen by helping in the respiration process. Thank you very
Yes,
much. What as the glycolysis and the Krebs cycle processes. I want to mention this. There are also some concepts biology that is available time. So there will be a topic for another function or form the lessons. All right, thank you very much for participating and interacting. Now the next thing is temperature. So temperature also increase the rate of active transport. So like if you're seeing and sometimes snow seeds, temperature also affects the rate of active transport. That means when the temperature is higher, it will increase the rate of active transport. But remember, we realize that temperature will increase the collision, the kinetic energy of the molecules, thereby they'll be able to collide more often, and that will lead to more rampant of these substances. So likewise, in active transport, energy is required. And so temperature also increases the rate of active transport. And we have examples of active transport. We'll look at some of the examples. As I said earlier, it occurs mostly in the kidney cells, whereby so absorption of sugar in amino acid into the blood system from the small intestine. So the small intestines occur over there, also in the kidneys. Okay. So when we are assimilating our nutrients into the small intestines, we need what we call active transport to move them. So because normally we have eaten before, so a lot of energy is in the blood, goes to the blood system, stored by the body, and then released over there. So we have a lot over there. And when what you have eaten added to the mass, that is called active transport. Also, absorption of mineral salt from the soil by root hairs in plants. The reason is if we are absorbing mineral salt from the soil, someone will say, but the mineral salt, there are many in the soil, but we are looking at concentration ones. So when we absorb some mineral salt from the soil by root hairs, that will also be required by active transport because the minerals will be diluted in the soil, but they will be more concentrated due to the smaller volume of the cell. That is why that will be an active transport. But sometimes some mineral salts will be transported through simple diffusion. So it depends on the energy balance, the nutrient balance or the molecule balance or the concentration in the cell or in the soil. So this example could be diffusion or active transport depending on the concentration, which is happening more. Is it the cell, the blood cell, or is it the soil or the environment? Now, I took our selective reabsorption of some substances. So during excretion in the kidney or the tabs of the kidney or the nephrons, what happens is that substances are not supposed to be excreted because the body still find them essential. These are amino acids, some things of them, and also glucose or sugar. And sometimes some hormones are also, although some do pass out, that depends on the amount and we are talking. So they're essential to them by the body reabsorb them, and we call it selective reabsorption of substances during excretion. Now we have what we call calcium pumps. So we have potassium pumps, calcium pumps. So this calcium pump, remember calcium helps the bone to become stronger. They also help in the contraction and relaxation of our muscles. So calcium pumps, they also regulate muscle contraction by controlling calcium ion concentrations. So we need calcium not just for our bones and our teeth. It also helps in the contraction and relaxation of our muscles, fibers, also, proton pumps. This regulate pH levels in various cells, including stomach, lining cells. So this also under what we call active transport to stabilize the pH level. Remember, proton is a catalyst, and pH is about the ionic potential, it's the acidic or basic, And if you remember your teaching of this, that Nielsen, Conservatory, and the rest, Lewis, remember H plus forms an acid and hydroxy groups form base. So that is why proton forms can affect the pH levels in the cell, especially the stomach line cells. Then we can talk about sodium potassium pump. So it's like a transport.
Three molecules of sodium moves out and two molecules of potassium moves in. So this creates a balance or ionic potential for substance to move along the cell or across the cell membrane.
Or light can transfer, there should be a movement of charges. So we have electrolysis whereby one will move the cathode, another will move the anode, the plus and other side. So as these charges move or electrons, it creates a potential for energy to transfer in our cells too, as the movement of sodium and potassium move across the cell outside the body. It creates a potential that we call ionic potential that helps muscular activity or nerve process to be transmitted across our cell. I'll pause here. There's a question you can ask about factors that affect the rates of active transport. So the size of the substance too can affect the rate of evolution. And these are the two main that we highlight. Okay, I will also want to answer your question.
Sir, please more on the temperature as a factor.
Okay, okay. So we are looking at the movement of molecules. So we talk about temperature. Now it is likely to temperature affecting the rate of diffusion and the rate of osmosis. Do you understand that under the rate of diffusion, how temperature affects?
Yes.
Okay. So how does temperature affect the rate of diffusion? If you heard the explanation or if you understood that explanation, can you help us or have to go to the point? Alright, are you there? Okay, let me go. If your network is not good, then we can just listen to that. So we talk about temperature. I'm sure we will look at the kinetic. I don't know, is it kinetic molecular theory? It's a theory in chemistry that talks about is it kinetic molecular theory or that's something like that. So when you eat, it asks about when food is on the pot being heated in the food that is cold, removed from the flame. The one from the flame, you can't smell any aroma. But the one on the pot, even if it's not that delicious, since you are eating it, the molecules get energy. And this energy will help them to alive. So they spread easily. That helps in the spreading of them under diffusion. When we come to active transport, though the molecules are small, we are pushing them. So once there's a increase in temperature, it also increases their kinetic pollution energy. So it becomes a little bit easier if you add small amount of them to push it across. So since there will be an increase in their energy or pollution energy, that's kinetic energy, a little push can put it. So it's like having pushing a car that is sparked already. Once it's sparked or you put it on neutral, it easily flows. When it's on a gear, pushing that car becomes very difficult. So the temperature being added is like taking the car to the neutral gear, whereby you can easily push it along. So that is how temperature affects the rate of the active transport. I think she has learned this. So that would be, so we can talk about the size. So the larger the size, the slower the active transport, the smaller the size of the molecule, the smaller and the lower the concentration gradient, the faster the movement. Because we are going against the lower the concentration gradient, it can easily add up to the other amount at the other side of the cell. If you have anyone, your hand is up, ask your question.
Sir, please, I want to ask if chemicals can be a factor that affects active transport.
Chemicals. Do you have any chemical in mind?
Like I read it in a textbook. It says that chemicals such as cyanide prevent ATP synthesis, hence reduce active transport. So I don't understand what they meant by that. That's
Thank
why
you. Thank you very much. We were just looking at the internal structure, but what we refer to as an external factor, and yes, it can seriously affect. Remember, the body prepares ATP. You know, these cyanide, they are chemicals, very toxic to the body. So when they enter our body, they interact as we write this from the book. They interact or distract the secret of ATP. They also override some mechanism and cellular activity, so thereby preventing the proper flow of energy. So once energy flow is being obstructed and the cell itself is being affected by the toxicity of the cyanide, it means that the cell is like you are not well. If you are not feeling well, sometimes eating becomes a problem. So how can you even grow your house plants? So these are a very serious thing. So these are changes that affect the natural of air. Naturally, cyanide is not in our body. We get it from some cassava even have it, this complaint that have this sort of thing. So it's a very point that affects it. But how often do we get these chemicals in transport? So it's a very good point. But these are the two main. If they ask you for two main these factors, as I talk about the size and maybe the grade, they're all up. So chemicals, as we said correctly, it affects it, and that is the right explanation. And I've also made emphasis on it. Thank you very much for bringing that point. So these are the two main. So chemicals will be there. So the chemicals can never influence. So we are looking at things that affect them and will be negative, but the chemicals will always reduce or slow down the cell network. And you're actually can answer your question.
Sir,
Hello.
what role do carrier proteins play and how does their quantity affect the transport rate?
Okay. Just be on the line. Let's try to answer this question. Do you know carrier proteins? Don't say no if you were here with us the other time. And then,
Sir,
do you remember what carrier proteins are?
a carrier protein is a specialized membrane protein that so it binds the specific molecules like glucose, ions, or amino acids and changes the shape to shuttle them across the cell membrane.
So before you can transport something, you have to have that thing with you. Either you have to carry it, put it in your bag. So that is where the binding is necessary. So I'm showing you something on it. That is why the binding is very important. So here, these are protein channel, and they also serve as carrier protein. So you see, the structure bounded to it. So once you are bounded to this, they can help. Remember this one, they are channels, so you can just pass through and enter into the inner part for the periphery of the cell. So there's a protein channel. It also transport the protein. So the function of these membranes is to assist the cell to also help in the transport of substances in and out of the cell. So it's a very good note that you understand what a protein channel is. Now, what's the next part of the question? Later, type your question rightly in the messages for me to be sure what I'm trying to answer. So Angelina actually come on board, but if she doesn't come, I will answer what I just spoke about. Angelina, actually, you are the one continue with the instruction. If you don't have enough time, so once you raise up your hand, it means you are ready. So see that you must see if you are ready, talk to us. Eran, if you are ready, talk to us.
Active transport occur without ATP directly.
Yes, we will learn about that. There are types of active transport. We have primary and secondary. So they will use energy, but the energy will not be direct. Be as an indirect cause. So the energy created will cause something. Energy. So it's like a moving car. The car is there. The guy just passed at a top speed. You see that a lot of wind will blow, and the wind will just move their hand away, or the wind that comes from the car will just push that dress out. So what push that dress from the line is the car, but not the car directly, but the wind from the car. So that is how the secondary acting. So indirectly, the car pulled that pan down or drew something down, and it didn't hit it, but it's the wind out of the velocity of the car that caused that happen. So there's something like that. Yes, get there. So
Okay, thank you.
you know, that lady, I'm still waiting for you to come there. We finish the last part of the question. So anytime you come, let me know. Those are the hand. I think for that it was the network is not pushing. I'm using the compare it. So let's continue. If there are no hands raised, so that we can look at what our sister just asked the question of. So active transport always there's energy. Sometimes the energy might not be direct. It's also called active transport, but that is second active transport. So we have types of active transport. The first one is based on, so we can have different types based on how the energy is being used. And also we can have that's the energy usage. We can also have another type based on what is being transported and how they are being transported. So the direction. One is how they are being transported. So we look at the simple transport. So now we have by energy usage. If we are directly using energy from the cell to cause the movement of the substance, then we are talking about active, primary active transport. Primary means we are using the energy directly. So the energy is pushing, it is pushing the movement of this trace of molecules across their concentration to where we have a bulk or a lot of them. So that is a type of active transport that directly use energy from ATP to transport molecules or ions against their concentration. Example is the sodium potassium bond. We have calcium bonds and also proton electrons, whereby H plus of protons will move into the cell. It will create a higher ionic potential, thereby increasing the pH of the cell. So, and that will help balance the chemical activity of the cell. Also, when I talk about the sodium potassium, that also move in or out of the cell to create ionic potential for nerve and muscular activities. So when there's a movement, it creates a potential or a difference, and that difference will cause electrical impulses to in and out of the cell. So that is the primary active transport. Then we have the secondary active transport, and here we are not using the energy directly, but the energy used will create the ionic potential I talk about. So what is an ionic potential? That will cause the other causes. It's like a moving car. A moving car will bring a lot of wind or air around. If the wind does something that becomes the secondary active transport. So you use energy from an electrochemical gradient established by an active transport. So since we are using energy, it will create an electrical let me say differences or ionic potential. And if this ionic potential has the ability to induce the movement of substances, then we call that one a secondary active transport. So here we use energy from an electrochemical gradient that is established by primary active transport. And once we have created the electrochemical gradient or the ionic potential, when we use that to transport molecules or ions against their concentration gradient, that what we call active or secondary active transport. So that is not using direct. But since we have created, so it's like someone has the key to a room. The person opens it, gives you his energy to open it. if I also sneak, so the person tried to open it with the key or maybe with muscular applied force, he broke into the room. If because he has broken into the room, if I can also sneak into the room, mostly like a mosquito, sometimes they'll be hanging around the corners of the door. Once you open, they also try. So since you open, you created a space that's the highly potential. You also sneak or peep or enter into the room. They have now relied on you opening the door. So if you open the, you see cameras, your curtains or anything over there also push back. Why? Because it was like a vacuum. Air was there. Once you open the door inside, push the air towards the corners of the room, and your curtain or anything over there will blow a little bit. So what happens is that you push air inside. Based on that, the mosquito can freely go with the light and enter your room. That becomes an example of what the secondary anti-transport for you to understand the simple things. And example is cold transport. So we'll talk about the cold transport. So cold transport is like this, like Akosia in, yeah, out. So if this one is going in, another one is going out. So like we are transporting two substances in the same channel. So the same channel is very good. Sometimes where I am now is a cash district. So trailers or these long vehicle, heavy duty, when they're coming from Accra and Tema, they will bring the Eagle, Pimba, sugar, and other products. When they reach here, they will wait for their turn and they will pick cashew nut back to Accra. Sometimes some will bring snakes. Since the season for cashew here, the car will wait, it will take our cashew nut back to Accra. If you are in the western of where they farm cocoa, the same truck that will bring a soft drinks and maybe asphalt mattress and products from Accra and Tema from the industries. That same car will wait. It will now pack the cashew or the cocoa or the product we have in that place. It will take them back. So that's how it happens. Before that was the full transport. So we are using the same transport system for the transport of two or more substances. Normally it's two. So here we have glucose sodium co-transport. So glucose will enter and sodium. So glucose enter the cell, sodium in the cell as there's a created ionic potential. So they are enjoying the ride from an active transport from sodium potassium form and glucose can enter. Now sodium is out of the cell based on the energy created by example the sodium potassium form I am shown here. So that is an example of what I just explained. So cold transport glucose to them. We also this amino acid. So amino acid transport, and we have neurotransmitter reactive. So when someone touches you, we have the effector muscle and effector muscles. They will channel them to the relay. Then put a effector will help you to have the feeling of what happens through your air cycle. So that will help you to reactive. So it's like it goes within this mirror arc or the reflex arc. Once it moves within that arc, it helps you to retaliate also to respond to air process. So neurotransmitter reactive cell help you. Just an example of secondary anti-transport. Now, in the secondary anti-transport, it could be sympater or antipoter. Sim from the word sim, or let me say, so this is whenever we transport one or more substances in the same direction. So if the same car that brought the cassava also brought the plantain, that is a sympater. So meaning it is transporting in the same direction or the same vehicle. So some of these secondary active transport could be a sympater. Some are also anti. Anti means against, or let me say opposite. So we have sympathers and antipathers. Sympathers are two equal transport systems whereby the two substances are transmitted in the same direction. So if glucose is entering, amino acid is also entering. But the antipater, as glucose is entering, the potassium or sodium will be leaving the cell. That is called an antipater, whereby two or more ions are transmitted in both directions. In simple, those substances are transmitted in the opposite direction. I'll talk about the last one, then I'll give you a chance to ask your question. So now direction. So based on the direction, they can have active secretion and active absorption. So sometimes if it is moving into the cell, it is absorbing. It is coming out but secreting. That becomes an active secretion. So active secretion involves the release of substance from a cell into a cell to be transported to target cells or organs. Example is the secretion of digestive juices into the digestive tract. So the oxalic cells, the parietal cells, and the chief cells in our stomach, these will produce the HCl, the leptin, the red and the rice. Some also produce glucose, then the chief cell produces of enzymes in our body. So when they are being released into the stomach, it is through what we call active secretion, so that these substances could be pushed to the cell where so into the stomach, where the stomach cells rather, where they will be there for digestion of food substances. So example of activity is whereby you see digestive enzymes into the digestive tract. So the pancreas also does that. Then we can talk about active absorption. So now someone has done the release. Another cell also has to take it up to perform its function. So involve the movement of solid particles from the lumen into the body against a concentration gradient. Example of this, a typical one. Someone says you can't hear me. Chlorine acetyl yeah, can't you hear me at all? The voice is very, very low. So if you can hear me at this point, you can give me a thumbs up. Let me let you know. Glory is telling us that she can. Let me get from the screen whether a lot of you can. If you can hear me, give me some thumbs up. Okay, a lot of them say they can. Okay, a lot of them say. So Glory, check on your network. As I told you, you can leave the chat and come back shortly just to show your sister network is working. Thanks for following up to this time. So now, the active absorption involves the movement of solid particles from the lumen into the body against a concentration gradient. Example is the absorption of glucose in the alimentary canal. So that is the assimilation of glucose into the alimentary canal, or particularly the intestines for it to enter the blood for the body to utilize. That is an example of active absorption. So at this point in time, I will pause. I just saw last week that if you perform tools, this part of the topic is treated in this form two. But since I prepared this in my slide, I do teach it in form one. I've gone through it too. I don't know what the syllabus will tell us to teach this time, because this was from most of these are from the old syllabus, but most of the things are teaching from the old curriculum. So they're the same thing that you said. But I'm sure you will not talk about safe bodies and antibodies. This more look like a little bit advanced so don't worry. I'm sure you guys will understand. If you have a question at this point in time, you can bring it. Then we will end it with the circular or work transfer. Now you have a question on active transport. For what we have talked about, you can maybe you read something somewhere you want to be able to understand it. And the leader asked a question about the career proteins and whether how they affect active transport. Let's be clear on the question there. Let's analyze it. At this point, you can raise up another question to us. Questioning time. You have a question. Yeah, hand is up. Let me check the question. So, Angelina, actually, I don't. Yeah, I think you are the person.
Yeah, the network was not good. The question I was asking was, how do carrier proteins affect active transport? That was the question.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. So we try to talk about the carrier proteins. So let me go to my screen and then show it so that I understand. So now we know carrier protein. There are channels of proteins attached to the cell that help the transport of substances. Now, since we are moving across a cell membrane, It's either if the cell can just pass through this structure before the bilayer, fine. Most of them, remember we talked about the semi-permeability of the cell membrane. It allows some to go unaided. So if you just enter, some say, then it goes across the cell membrane. Some also will never be allowed to enter through the cell membrane. Others need, let me say, people or bouncers to help them enter. An example is the protein channel proteins and the transmembrane proteins. I'm sure you're all listening. So some can just enter straight away. That is by simple diffusion. Oxygen don't need to go through a channel here or a membrane. No. Oxygen just diffuse straight away. Water, it just enters through the nose. But some substances, example could be some hormones, some could be some proteins, or maybe some glucose compound, or maybe carbohydrate compound. They cannot just enter through directly. What they need to do is they need to find a channel. Although we are moving across a cell membrane using energy, the energy cannot just move. It's like having a petrol. Can the petrol just move into your destination? No. You need a carrier or a carriage. That is your car. That is your motor. That is the vehicle. So you have the energy, the fuel in it. If you have the car and there's no fuel in it, you can't move alongside. But now you have your car. You also have your fuel. So the car now is what that trains you from the school. That is the protein channel. Now the fuel is the ATP within the cell. It will come here and the molecule attached here can now move through that the glucose can now move through into the cell. So it has moved across. So the protein channels, the function that it is, they create a channel or they create let's say a way, a passage for these substances to pass through, because not all substances can enter the cell unaided. Just like oxygen can move anytime it wants, carbon dioxide can move anytime it wants, and glucose and some other substances, nutrients and compounds, they need a carrier, and that would be the protein channels and the transmembrane proteins. With the addition of the energy, that is the fuel, then the car, maybe the protein, you can move those that small things. So like going to sell your cassava in the gap, or let me say the cassava market, yours is very small. You get a protein, this tricycle, get your fuel, then you take your middle cassava to get them to go to the larger market. That is active transport of something lower to where it is small. You are taking it to the open market. You need a protein channel. That is your vehicle. You need fuel. That is your ATP, so that you can carry your farm produce to the open market for sale. So I think this best answer your question. Angelina, if you are okay, if you have a follow-up question, you can bring on board. If you have something to share with us, you can share. Or the Angelina is your first number. I'm sure you do understand. So I'm asking you to bring your comments. If you do understand, fine. If not, I'm sure when you listen to the recording of the YouTube, you understand. So those who watching from the YouTube, you can also ask your questions over there later. I will answer you. Those on double me will have this answered in this live recording. But those who watch later from the YouTube, you can also type the question under the comment section. I like the people who are still with us so far on the YouTube session. Later we will watch it. And also you can share for future. So it's questioning time. We have 18 minutes to end the lesson. Very good. Please, let me go and read the question very well. It was very faint on my screen. Very brilliant question. Oh, someone said meaning of active transport. Please go to the slide. Oh, active transport is the movement of molecules from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration across a region using energy to move it. It's in the slide. Please go and read. If you don't have it, ask of it. Definition is there. It seems like there's no need for us to go back. So please, but I didn't explain if only you had I raised. So the definition is in the slide. Go and search for it. If you don't have the go to the Google Classroom, it is there. That's the definition of lack of story. This is the definition of AT. You can let me show it to you. Later I'll show you. So someone asked a question, how is active transport related to air impulse transmission? So we talk about active transport, we are using energy over there. And some of the active transport can create ionic potential. That is when we are pushing charge flow. So, for instance, if there's no charge flow, light and no electricity, current, that means the flow of electrical charges. So the positive moves, or let me say the electrons are moving. So the electrons, are the one that do them. So as they are moving, it creates a current. So it's like waving like this. You see that wave will blow. That can move any soft particle or anything on the table. Now, if you dwindle through water, if you wade through water, one time if you create a current, that can move. When we're case, you can't start a unit plate, you just wind the hand around the water, it creates a current, something like a minute to hand in the water. What that means, anything in the water will move in that circle. If you go around that direction, it goes to 10 that direction. What are we doing? We are creating a current, water current, as you also wade in, as you are in the boat. What happens? It goes to move. So when there's a movement of substance or electron, it causes a motion. So now, let me show my screen now so that those who watch it live can see. This is the definition for active transport. And the question that someone has asked as I showed my screen is, how does active transport affect their input? So based on active transport, now let's look at this active transport. This will create an ionic potential for a substance have moved across the membrane. And since we have used energy to create that, it will create what we call a concentration gradient, which is technically called an ionic potential. For instance, sodium potassium bomb.
Three molecules of sodium ion moves outside and two molecules of potassium ion moves inside. This creates a voltage across the
So
cell
what
membrane.
happens is that if this they are moving, it's like electrons moving. Once they move, they create a difference. And this potential difference or ionic potential creates or helps cells to transmit impulses. So sometimes if the elbow is something, it seems that electrical shock and trends are happening to most of us. It's as if there's an impact or that pass through that part of your elbow through your joint here and also your phalanx or your pelvis. So it is likely to flow of electrons or charges or electricity. So what happens is that if electrons are moving in the circuit, there's energy flow. If this active transport create the ionic potential whereby sodium will enter potassium will in, that will create a similar ionic potential. There's a touch, anything. So if there's a touch on your skin, there's the movement. Potassium enter, sodium and leaves. So that will create a potential at that region. That will help the impulse to go. Now this what happens. The cells at where your hand was hit, they are not activated. And remember, charges movement. So like they contact through the nerve cells. So once this one has been activated, they also little by little activate the rest ahead of them. So they're having a matchstick. Once it's lighted, it can transfer its power or its energy to the other part. So once it is localized, it's activated, it will be transported through a series of reactions to all those nerve cells over there. Then as it activates them, it moves along. So that is how active transport does that. Then it localized. Once they receive the energy, then they become activated by the potential. They also transport through similar series of activities. So it's like having how do I call it? Maybe a lot of tools, or maybe say sack put together. They are all standing on their own. If this one falls, what happens? If this one falls, you put this one down. It's another one there. All of them will fall in that synchrony. So it's like books arranged in a set. The others leaning on one. If you take the first one out, all of them will fall down. So that's how it will be transmitted in series across them before they get to the effector others. Then they also help you to also try to respond to that statement. So the one that asked the question is a very detailed question, but I'll try as much as possible to make it a little simpler for our level of understanding. There's another question. I think there's I have a slide. I did a presentation and way back at the first one that I will check my paper. If I have it, it's above our level group for you to understand. So, yeah, I don't find it very easy. I'll show you what that is. So if there's another question, let me know. I will stop sharing my screen and go and look for it. We have 12 minutes. Any other question? I wish today we can finish the last bit of any questions that you have and the active transport. If we have time, I'll go and search for that slide. Help you understand that. Okay. Marika also your hands up. Marika also. Marika, talk to us. We have 2 minutes to ask your question. Marika, those who are supporting, if you are speaking, we can't hear you. Okay, Frederica. Frederica, your hand is up. You can talk to us. Frederica is not talking. Let me call Angelina Entry. Auntie, you are back.
Sir, why does an increase in temperature affect the rate of?
Oh, you asked the question. I explained in the video. So I think your network was answer that time. But in this we talk about how temperature affects the rate of pollution and realize that under pollution it increases the current energy of pollution, thereby the rate of pollution. So the rate of pollution also increases. That causes the pollution to. And I brought this example. If you know much about cars and motor, when they are on a neutral gear, can easily push them. But when they are on a gear, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatsoever, you can put the motor like this. If you can't push it, you can't just push it when it's in the gear. But once you take it to the neutral, you can put it. Cars does the same. So the energy is like putting it in a neutral gear. A little push, the car moves. So what is being activated, you give it some inner energy called kinetic energy. So when an external energy from it becomes, it easily moves in the direction. So in simple terms, the heating is kinetic energy that will move on its own or vibrate on its own condition. So once it is vibrating, a little push in a direction can help it. That is why temperature affects the rate of active transport. At excess temperature, before we are using cell, if it's maybe 100 degrees, 40 above the cell, if you even kill the cell, it will reduce. So it's optimum temperature that affects the rate. So if you're increasing temperature still in the optimum range, for instance, 0 to 25, it will increase. 0 to 30 to increase. But 35 to 80, but by then the cell has now been filtered or burnt out. So that is when we are increasing temperature within the optimum range, it will increase the rate of diffusion as well as active transfer. So that shows that your network was very bad. I expect the plan I've done it at people. Angie, today we're talking any other thing.
Yeah, please, I didn't hear what you said.
Then please, I'll put the recording online where we watch it because I've done this several times. If you can't hear, that is why I've been recording it. You can check on the watch it or later you can decide on it, or else you can get more questions to answer. So we'll do that later when I post it. You can chat on WhatsApp. I will do a voice report. By the time you guys check other questions. Marika, who's WhatsApp?
Sir,
Is that Marika?
yes, please.
Okay, talk to us.
Yeah, so how can oxygen influence active transport?
And then Andrew, explain that to her for me. Andrew, explain that to her friend Marika. I'm sure she's trying very late. We'll talk about this one. Angie, if you are there, can you help explain this to your friend? Okay, and then actually, what I talked about is this. Before active transport, we need energy. So since we need energy, what does the cell use to produce energy? It's oxygen. So it's like if you need more energy, you want to prepare food, what must you have? You must get your gas over there, maybe your charcoal or your firewood prepared. So the more gas you have, the more food you can prepare in the house. So that is why oxygen is being prepared by the cell to increase the rate of active transfer. So that is a simple. So if you watch the video later on YouTube, you get all in depth. This is a simple one. So oxygen is given so that it will be a carrier, electron carrier system, Krebs cycle, and glycolysis stages, which will help to transfer the electron. When ATP will form, when ATPs are formed, the cell now have energy. So if there's more energy, there's more active transfer. If there's less energy, less active. Today that you are very full of food, you are full of energy. When you are fasting, that you are just quiet, trying to conserve your energy. But after eating, you come and see power. So that is why all this is transfer. I'm sure you are okay. Now we can start. Okay, Glory, I see you. We are there. You have a question asked. In the next minute, I will pause questioning, then I'll try and finish the last thing. Is there something let's the next Tuesday we can start out of say systems. Glory, your hand is up. I'm waiting for a few seconds. Ask your question, then I will teach the book first.
Please, will you post this lesson on your channel, your YouTube channel?
Yes, please, I will do that. I'm praying today to have a good record. But I can't promise one thing. But I'm very busy. I won't be able to edit it. So maybe later by 2. So just activate your notification. Once it's there, you have. You will check it before I send it.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. So I think at this point in time, for me to finish my lesson, let me go back to my app, share my screen, and let you know what we have next. That is the contract. Yes, origin is there in Arabic. Let me check that message very well. Someone answer the question. Okay, let me read it from here so that those who would watch from YouTube can see the question asking. Solomon. Someone asked a question, how does the sodium potassium bond work? So they work antagonistically. I understand that. So sodium
So as explained earlier on, 3 molecules of Na plus sodium ion will move outside of the cell membrane, as the 2 molecules of potassium plus will move inside of the cell membrane, and this creates the ionic potential for electrical activity to be conducted across the cell membrane.
So once this happens, it creates ionic potential that will cause the electrons, or let me say, net impulses to. So that is why sometimes you are advised not to eat too much salt. When it happens that way, you see that you have a lot of like something like that. But they are highly activated. So too much salt is not good. Less food is bad. But you have too much salt, that's sodium in your body. It also affects how your energy was work. So sodium moves in, already said right, and potassium moves out. So the balance can create ionic potential or electrical potential that will hold the movement itself. I've talked about this already, so Angelina, I've answered your question. To add that, the oxygen also helps in helping reduce stress and also increase age reaction. Hence, so Salome has done a perfect job for us. There are salt that makes cells. Yes, too much salt can damage cells. It depends on, now let's talk about hypertonic solution. The cell will shrink when there's too much salt. And when there's too much salt too, what happens is that too much sodium will overactivate your dead people. So if you too much of it, they become faint, like what happened in the cell also. So too much cells can damage their cells. Very, very important. So let's start. Too much cells can damage. That's why we are trying to do too much. And it also, that is why those who are hypertensive, they are advised to take salt. So if you have an agent, actually all of us are, most of us are, our brains are agent of 50 above. What happens is that they are advised not to be taking how do we call it? They are advised not to be taking in too much salt. Why do we try not to be taking in too much salt? When they take in this salt, it also increases the way the heart pumps. So it will increase the muscular activity, the heart pump, thereby creating a higher pressure. So when this happens, that pressure will be allowed to too much salt so that they are going to lower muscular activity because muscles that the cardiac muscle they point their blood to their we call it myogenic. They have the ability to point blood in their own way. They generate their own energy. They point whether you like it or not. Your heart is still on. It's not controlled by your nervous system. So you are the fact nervous system like your conscious part nervous system. It just undergo process and then so that is salt is very good. If you have less of it, you respond slowly to task and impulses. If you have too much of it, you have hyperactive or hypersensitive. So I think I have answered your question, Esther. It's a benign answer your question. So please allow us to finish this topic today. So if you like it, fine, we'll continue. So please let me finish what I'm supposed to do today. We have about 20, it shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. Can we finish? Let me try. It's almost 9. Okay, let me allow for questions. If you can't finish Tuesday, we'll continue. Then we talk about what we call bulk transfer. So today is only for transfer. The time is like if I try to continue, go more than 20 minutes. So I will make this one short. Any question, any other question can ask. So what we do, we will talk about bulk transfer. Then do another route active transfer. So we will not force ourselves to if you have a question, you can ask. Someone asked about who's going to take down there. Please, Raymond, Emily. So if you have a question and I don't answer it from the question section, someone said, what's the name of the YouTube channel? Let me type it here. It's a Michael Business Consult. I'll put a link there, but copy it somewhere. After the video, you will have access to this. So that is the link to the YouTube channel. It's called St. Michael Business Consult. So check from the chart here. This is my picture, a very, very old picture that I have refused to change. So let me share my screen with you. I will show you the image that will show. So those of us who are not on the WhatsApp page have access. So that is it. You will see this image where my mouse is. That is the image that you will see when you log into Michael Business Consult. The name is Michael Abuman, so that the channel name is Michael Business Consult. S&P Consult for short. So that is it. Any other question? Today we will make it short so that tomorrow, Tuesday, God willing, we will talk about bulk transport or particular transport. Let me check if there are some questions that to answer. I've done the meaning of active transport. Okay, I don't talk about the phospholipid filing. Oh, Raymond, please go and watch the other video. You will take us back. We explained that in the first, so go to the channel. We have been 5 lesson 1. We talk about the cell. We explicitly explain the phospholipid filing and the structured house. So I'm sure she can do that. Rebecca, I'm sure you can hear. I've talked about the next question. I've answered and the entry. And Salome also gave us a very good artist information. So I think at this time, if there's no question, you'll be free to end the lesson for tonight. Kindly subscribe to the channel. Always be there to learn. If there's anything that you don't understand, most of you read, but you don't like. If you like the video, at least give a thumbs up. That gives the Facebook and YouTube algorithm to recommend our video for other people. Don't be, let me say, greedy to share this on. So subscribe to the channel anytime you post that to have access to it. Let's support this so that we can build this channel. So thanks for all those who support by joining, the question that you asked, and also viewing, commenting, liking, and sharing ideas, even as we do all our sectors. So thank you very much. If there's a question you can ask. Is it someone with that question? Okay, so if there's no question, I think we did end the lesson for today. As I said, I'll edit it. It will be on the YouTube. Tell me your notification. You will be able to have access to this. So thank you once again for being with us. God willing, on Tuesdays, same time, 7:30 p.m. We will revise the active transport and dive better into bulk transport or vestibular transport. Let me address this issue. Google Classroom, I have posted questions there. When you answer it, go to the classroom. If you have not been able to register, chat me or email the administrators. Download Google Classroom. If your tablet or phone doesn't support that, go out of the parent or we don't use that much a lot. Once you register, there's a link UMT, I think the URL. Chat me or as I will send them. I think it's UTMT, the URL. That is the link to enter the classroom. Do your assignment. After the lesson, I will post assessment too. So you're up to Wednesday to finish whatever it's separate match. 25 questions. Once you finish, the answer will be there for you to check. Current open. I also want to talk to us. If you have any issue,
Sir,
yeah.
Please, can we add another student as in not in our school to the
Yeah, we made provision for that. Students from other schools, we see our one, it was first science 11 biology.
That's what did Harriet say?
Harriet was saying, can we ask students from different schools? And I'm answering her. When we started, the group grade was science 11, created by Chewa, science 11 class group. And I said that no, I gave my condition so that we can create a larger group so that all of us can benefit. Because this one, about 1 million people can benefit. So why limit it to only 10 students or 282 students that I teach out of about 570 students in class. So we expanded it. Later we saw that others too wanted people wanted to join. Then we have created a different group for them. So this for the WhatsApp group that we have played Yaks biology platform. Let's go by the name. It's Yaks. I understand if you're doing Yaks classes, other OWA students and red guys or other ladies can join. That one is physical. But here we want to keep you on a different thing. So the Yaks biology platform is for only Yaks students. We have created a subsidiary group which is named online platform. So if you have a friend like that, chat us. Other one to other colleagues. And the good thing is they can be with us on the Google Meet right now. I have some guys over here. I think I saw some articles. So I also have I for Francis from UAS. I had today, I tell you one lady from Louis is there, one lady from Iwiki. So other students are also here with us. But the one thing I want is that they shouldn't be on our WhatsApp platform. They have a special WhatsApp platform for them. So, Harriet, you can chat me on WhatsApp for the link for the other students. I think I'm yeah, so they are
Thank you.
So the Google Meet and the classroom here, they can be with us over there. But the WhatsApp platform, that's for sure. Don't keep group on students of theirs that have joined. So you can make an account because sometimes supposed to do for you and you alone. I have decided to go an extra and help with others. But they also bring something for the assistant. So I think I've over explained that. So I was on the closing moment. So the group is called. If you have any issue, you can chat about the 10 p.m. to close so that you don't. Sorry to say, you has at times to do so late related connections. So have a good night. Same time Tuesday, we shall. Keep studying as well. Study the other subjects, and I wish you all the best. Stay blessed. Bye.